Now we can still see through your glass. Are you on your laptop now?
I am on my laptop.
You're normally on your phone, isn't it?
I know. That's why it looks a bit dark. And plus, I'm in the loft. But if I sit on the other side, bro, it's gonna be too bright.
Why? There's no nude, bhai.
Me and Naveed are visually showing you who the Mufti is again. Look, we got nothing behind us today. Not even a book.
Okay, let me just check if the sound's working, guys. Can you hear the sound? Okay, let's get the sound in
I think
here.
they can hear. I think we're live.
Guys, if you can talk.
Can you hear us, Mufti Sab? Check
Can
1,
you hear
2.
me, Mufti Sab?
Okay, their sound has disappeared as well.
Mic check 1, 2.
Check.
Nav.
2.
Now, what time is Sahur today?
Yeah, can
Yesterday
you hear?
was
1, 2, 3
2:15.
testing.
So I don't know, man. I haven't checked it yet. I think it's probably going to be 1:45. Something like
Can't
that.
seem to hear you guys.
Yeah.
No, I think Waz is about that time as well. I think I retreated back to the old one, man.
What I do, yeah, I've got this Telegram thing from Islam 21C, so I use that. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
This is way early, man.
Better to be safe than sorry, brother.
Forget you, man. Safe and sorry. Forget to be hungry, man.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
When it's too early now.
When it's too early, I'm not going to do the podcast anymore.
We're gonna finish with the Sahur. Just so that I don't get any refutations today. What I've done is I've got a drink in both hands. So if you're getting a mirror image, at least I'm drinking one with my right hand.
MashaAllah.
That's the lengths you have to go to now.
I'm not even drinking anything, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, you got to do this stuff. And the other thing is, I realized just before I was going live now that I got the same T-shirt on that I wore in the last podcast.
Inshallah.
So I had to put a hoodie on.
Change.
No, I had to put a hoodie on just in case. It's boiling hot here, so if I look like I'm sweating and getting hot and bothered, it's not because Nav's bothering me. It's more likely because I didn't want the same visuals to look good at the same.
I can't seem to hear you guys for some reason. I don't know why.
Can you hear us now, Mufti Sab, or just on the YouTube?
Let me just check. We
can continue while Mufti Sab sorts that out. Today we were going to talk about Khana, Peena.
Khana, Peena is the topic, yeah, bro. But
that was your topic.
Within that topic, it's kind of my topic.
No, it's your topic.
Why is it my topic?
Because you chose it on the. You don't make me show everybody the WhatsApp conversation.
I just said let's talk about food and talk about diet and medicine. That's what I said.
Okay, I can hear you guys now. Alhamdulillah.
Mufti back.
At last.
Mufti is back in the room, mashallah. So, what was it in particular?
1 second. I still can't seem to get this sound thing in.
Enough.
G.
What was it in particular?
What I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Obviously, because the whole podcast revolves around me, so No, I'm only joking. Basically, I just wanted to ask Mufti Saab and just have a conversation with yourself as well about prophetic medicine with everything that's going on in the world, and you've got people claiming that if you take this and that won't affect you and this won't affect you, and just touch up on subjects like that and talk about
that you can like this podcast and get away with it. That's a good quality comment. That is. That's why it goes live on Facebook, because you get the general guys. I don't know why Shoaib isn't praying Tarawih, by the way.
By Tarawih you can pray all the till Fajr.
Well, his Fajrs are like 1:05.
No, he's on the 18-degree base. He's not that early at the moment, bro. Come on, man.
So he's following a 19-degree rule or something,
How's that?
He's been doing it like 1:05 for years, man.
No, he does it. He does the 18 degrees. He just follows the slightly stricter one. I think maybe the Islam 21C one.
Yeah, that's the easy one to follow. Because that Telegram app is really good.
Yeah.
Gives you the time wherever you are. Otherwise, you're following other timetables and they can kind of like check you off. One of the things I was talking about with somebody actually before, while Mufti Sab sorts this out, was we were talking about prophetic food, because that was one of the things we were going to talk about. And I asked him, I said to him, are there any recipes that you can get from the Sunnah?
Yeah.
Or from the Seerah or from any classical textbooks? Can you find any recipes?
Yeah.
And he was like, he goes, there's one that's called, is it called Thabith? Tabit or Tabit.
Thabit. Talbina, you mean?
Not Talbina. Let me just check on my good old trusty. Not Nabi. Tahrid or Tahrid.
May look. Unfortunately, we don't do tajweed lessons. We don't do we don't do tajweed lessons on.
Your tajweed is wrong. Your tajweed is wrong.
He spelled it with a H in it.
We don't do tajweed lessons on.
It's alright. We don't do tajweed.
Okay, I've almost got it, guys.
What was it?
I don't know. What you on about?
THAREED.
THAREED.
It's a meat.
Yeah, that's the exact Arabic spelling, Mufti Sahab.
How can you not know it?
Allah alam, bro. Allah alam. Allah alam, bro.
What did he say in the comment, bro? Nav what?
Okay, guys, I got it. Alhamdulillah. Okay, right. So, guys, everyone can hear. Is the sound working properly?
People away from Allah.
Okay, so first of all, let me just say to A Warner, I think that was your own fatwa, brother, that you think we're taking people away from Allah. And I think it was incorrect of you to say that we're taking people away from Allah. You have no reason to say so. So I think carry on with your tahajjud, or carry on with your whatever you were doing, and criticize someone else, bro.
No, he was praying tahajjud like this, most of on the screen. He was using his screen.
I personally think so.
Yeah. And then he came to the YouTube channel.
Some people just got loads of time on their hand to criticize people, and
it's probably my top, I reckon it was my top that caused all the fitna. So let's make excuses for the brother.
You look like a barcode gone wrong, bro.
Maybe the brother was the fashion police.
Yeah, it could be, bro. Okay.
So have you heard of it? Naveed.
Naveed.
My name, man. What the heck?
Naveed. Yeah, Naveed. Heard of Naveed, bro? Who hasn't heard of Naveed?
Musab, is that's the dry meat one, isn't
it? No, Naveed is dates in water. So you leave dates in water, and you leave it overnight or about a day, and then you drink the water, the juice.
I'm gonna have to ask this Mulana how you spell this other one that he told me about. It's barley, lamb, and bread.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's called.
Read.
Harisa. Talking about harisa.
Is that what it's called?
It's called yakni.
Alright, guys, so we are on finally, alhamdulillah, finally on, and now we can start, inshallah ta'ala. Alright, so guys, I do apologize for the late start. We actually did have some technical issues. I tried to do this nice fancy thing on the screen, but unfortunately, it didn't seem to be working very well. And then eventually, when it did start to work, then I don't know, Naveed just distracted me. Yeah, bro. So I'm gonna blame it on you.
Okay.
It was a refutation, Mufti Sahab.
Okay, so let's start. Actually, 1 second. All right, guys. Can you guys? Is it working properly? Can you see it?
Yeah.
I was asking the subscribers if subscribers can see it.
Now, are you gonna have to pay like £15 for a haircut when you get out of lockdown?
You know what? You look like proper.
This is getting smaller and smaller, bro.
Next podcast in my wife's hairband.
First it was the sisters, now it's your wife's.
Yeah, I own nothing in this household.
We want to see a tiara.
Okay.
Are we good to start?
My internet for some reason it just keeps freezing. No idea why. Exactly, bro. Exactly, that's what happens. Because we are doing ibadat, bro. We are doing ibadah.
5G.
You know what? Since 5G has come, have you noticed you got headaches?
No, I just noticed my popcorn gets made quicker.
In your pocket.
Just go with your popcorn in your pocket. Past the 5G meter and you go. That's one way of doing it. Isn't it? Now
Yeah.
we're missing your bag today.
Which one? Sorry.
The triangle one.
Oh, the triangle. Oh, don't worry, man. I've got a replacement, like I've said.
I may be wrong, but I doubt it.
Yeah, this will be the replacement.
Always worth having one of those, mashallah. In terms of should we crack on with the topic, Mufti Saab?
Just give me 1 second. It's just, I don't know, for some reason it's just really, really slow down. The internet seems to be fine because we're talking okay. So I don't know
I
what.
think on Facebook it's fine.
Yeah,
And
what?
on Zoom, it's fine. I think the only app that's struggling probably is the YouTube.
Yeah, it's a YouTube one.
Abdul Hay goes, it's not called Tarid, it's called Churi.
It is truly, bro.
I don't know what kitabs he's reading, but maybe he's reading a kitab that he went on a Sufa residential or something.
If you've not been to a proper chachi wedding and had churi, bro, you ain't lived life.
I had Churi once as a residential and I had indigestion for 3 days.
Oh.
Who made it? Or can you not say?
I don't want to mention him now, but I'm just saying that,
He's probably watching, isn't he?
he was part of a pharmacy, so it could be two of them actually. He's a Pathan and he's involved in a pharmacy.
Yeah, let me stick some Imodium in there. Let me put.
He might as well have, man. Honestly, that was crazy. They just made roti, but I don't think they put any. Like, you get the salan, which is the onion part, and then you get the oil part. They just put loads of oil in. Then they did all the bread, and they said, this is from the Sunnah, eat this. So I thought, let me try it. Tried a little bit. Thought, okay, this isn't too bad. Next 3 days, honestly, I just could. Oil, that's all I could taste.
Mufti Saab looks paper on.
Okay, you know what I might have to restart the computer. So
Mufti Saab, do that, and then we'll just
Yeah.
talk in the meantime.
So you guys carry on.
Yeah, we'll carry on.
I'm just gonna.
And all the staff in the different countries are wearing PPE and certain things we obviously can't do because we're trying to encourage social distancing and people to follow the rules, bro. So, where you had the communal iftar and things like that.
Yeah.
Most things, unfortunately, we're not able to do anymore. But alhamdulillah, bro. Main thing is that we're still helping our brothers and sisters abroad.
It's fine. I think that's what it comes down to, and that's the most important thing. If you can continue your work and continue helping people. I think one of the things that I put on today got quite a bit of traction around zakat and paying it to your family members.
Yeah. I remember a brother asked a question in it, like, can a daughter pay zakat to her father if she doesn't live with him and the father's in debt, or to clear the father's debt, for instance?
Yeah.
And I think the example you gave was something about if that was the case, everybody would be paying each other's mortgages and stuff like that, which kind of makes sense.
It's lineal ascendants and descendants, so anybody who's in your lineage, and then spouses as well, according to that now. Anyway, I'm not sure about the others.
I think Abdullah's watching. He put up something quite interesting.
Okay, guys, we are on. Alhamdulillah, it's working now, and I've actually managed to flip the camera over. So if anyone sees us drinking, we're always going to be drinking with our right hands. Allahu Akbar.
Which one's my right hand? On your screen? On Facebook, this is my right hand. On your screen, this is my right hand. I can't get refuted today.
All right, guys. So we do apologize again, and we do apologize for this delay. But alhamdulillah, now it's working now. Alhamdulillah. So I think that brother's gone. So maybe the du'as come true.
Might be thinking to themselves, what we talking about? Mufti Saab's also streaming this on Roots of Knowledge on YouTube as well, which is his YouTube channel. So it gets screened there and it gets streamed here as well. So that's why we've had a slight delay in case anybody's watching on Facebook and think, what have you been doing for the last 10 minutes?
Mufti Saab, what's the Roots of Knowledge in Arabic? How do you say it?
Urukul ilm.
Okay, and how do you say in Urdu or Punjabi?
You say Uruke ilme.
How do you say in backslang, Mufti Saab?
Uruguk ilagim.
Hikmat ki jar, maybe. Is that what you call roots? Jar?
Jar, yeah, jar. Yeah, ilam ki jar.
Jar is tree though, isn't it? It's not a root.
Yeah, like a root. Oh, you don't have to get too. This is Ramadan, but yeah, we just been fasting all day. We don't want to get into this kind of semantics and all that.
Look here, you gotta get the words right.
Like your word, how you mispronounced that word and you made it sound like Naveed for about 10 minutes, bro.
Okay, forget that. Now let's get back to the most important thing, which is
Allah.
The topic.
MashaAllah.
Okay, so come on. So what was the topic today, guys?
Khana Peena, man. Khana Peena and prophetic medicine.
Okay, so prophetic medicine, yeah. So come on.
So now we were talking about prophetic medicine in the last one. Remember, we were talking about black seed oil, where people say it's a cure for everything.
Yeah.
Mufti Saab, question is that if black seed doesn't work for you, then for something, and you get disappointed, is that like, didn't it work for you because you got some spiritual deficiency or something?
Go on.
People say, if it doesn't work for you, then the black seed's not the problem, you're the problem.
Mm.
Talking about throwing Mufti Saab in the deep end. I think what Altar's probably trying to say is that if a prophetic medicine, not just black seed oil, if it doesn't have an effect on you, does that mean you're any less of a Muslim, or you're not doing something right? Or this is where you step in, Altar, and save me, because I don't know what the or was.
Or is it not entirely in its context that it cures everything? Is there a different context to it, or is there actually a general context?
I mean, see, I remember. I think I told you guys this. Remember when I told you when I gave a talk in Birmingham University on prophetic medicine?
Yeah.
And I said that doctor was there and he was writing down everything. And he basically the kind of like issue here that is raised normally is that if the Prophet ﷺ ever used something or endorsed it, does that naturally mean that it becomes prophetic? So for example, like the Prophet ﷺ ate food, the Prophet ﷺ wore clothes, the Prophet ﷺ, he must have used a miswak, and all these kind of things. So does that automatically now qualify the item as being prophetic? As in, when we say something is prophetic, is it the same as saying that it was to do with Islam, or it was simply done by the Prophet ﷺ? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have this sort of like an issue that the scholars raise, as in, when we say the Prophet ﷺ does something, or he says something, or he eats something, then does that automatically qualify it to be prophetic? As in, it's got some like divine sort of inspiration behind it, or there's rewarding, or it's something at least a Muslim should do. Does that make sense? So then from there, I mean, the scholars raise questions like, does that mean we have to live in Medina? Yeah, as in the Prophet ﷺ lived in Medina. Does that mean that we should be living in mud huts? Does that mean that we should be wearing the same material that was worn in the days of Sahaba? Does that mean that we should be carrying the same type of sort of stick that maybe he carried around? Does that make sense? Like, where do we draw the line then? Yeah. So I think that's one thing that has to be understood. And the other thing that has to be understood is that when it comes to this idea of everything being prophetic, like people, for example, like nowadays you'd have like a sunnah hijama shop, sunnah gifts, sunnah this, sunnah cakes, sunnah, is a lot of people seem to be using this, like hijacking this term as a marketing sort of like strategy, right? Because once you put the word sunnah onto something, you automatically are going to attract a certain audience, crowd, right? So there seems to be this element of people using this for that. So I think those are the two main sort of issues. So as for the first one, I mean, a lot of the kind of things that we hear in the sunnah, like what is it called, black seed oil, or for example like olives, or cupping, yeah, cauterization, bandaging. These all existed before the Prophet ﷺ's time. They were all Arab practices, right? Now, for example, imagine paracetamol existed then, right? And for example, like let's say paracetamol was used in the time of the Sahaba. Now, would that give us any more significance now? Like, would that raise the significance of that as now it's becoming sort of like divinely inspired? So majority of scholars say no. And this is why this whole issue of Tibbun Nabawi, like prophetic medicine itself, is a very sort of like controversial area. As in, scholars have written about this. You find in books of hadith this area of Tibb being mentioned. But it's like, first of all, is it something that was divinely sort of endorsed by the Prophet ﷺ? Like, did he kind of like use it and say, well, you know what, this is the best medicine? But then someone might ask the question, well, what if there's loads of medicines that existed in that time, like Chinese medicines, that didn't reach the Arabs?
Yeah.
And if it had reached the Arabs, it would have most likely been used by them. Yeah. So then what do we say about those? Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mufti Saab. I remember, like, obviously, we watch videos on the internet or whatnot, and I remember somebody actually criticizing a Muslim, saying that your Prophet told somebody to drink camel urine as a medicine.
Yeah.
Did this happen? How do we look at this in this day and age? And obviously, I know some madahib, they say that the animal dung and urine is najasa, and others don't. So how do we take something like that away? And
yeah. So again, this continues from what I was saying. So it's like the Prophet ﷺ lived for 23 years, conveying the message of Islam. Okay.
Yeah.
In this time, he clearly has said lots of things. Most of those things haven't reached us. Like, if you think about it, if the whole collection of hadith that we have, there's only a maximum of 50 to up to 60,000 hadith. Right? And so, one second, someone's saying that the mic, your guys' mic is not as loud.
It's because we're not saying anything. Sub.
can you hear me?
Allah. Okay, so is there any way of increasing this? Let me just check. If there is, there should be.
I think one of the things they were talking about, Musab, like when it comes to that, is like, even like when you get things like cupping.
Yeah.
And they say cupping is the extraction of bad blood, and they say some people say cupping only works in warmer climates because the blood comes to the surface better.
Yeah.
And they're saying that if you wanted to practice the extraction of blood in a cold country, then you'd have to do phlebotomy, which is like going into the veins to extract blood.
Okay.
So they were giving that example and saying that, is it about extraction of blood? Is it about hijama? Or is it about what's best in your climate when it comes to medicinal stuff?
So that's a good point. What you raised there is a good point, because normally, like, for example, when you start practicing and you hear black seed oil is a cure for everything, your mind always goes to black seed oil. Even if you break your leg, you think to yourself, right, I'm going to use black seed oil, because that's how a newly practicing person has so much reverence for the Prophet ﷺ, that everything that's attributed from him, like I was saying, how many things did he say in his 23 years of life? He must have said lots of things. And the whole corpus of hadith that we have, let's say there's 60,000 hadith. In there, if you were to condense it to only the statements of the Prophet ﷺ, only his statements, you can probably, I would say, maybe, maybe 50 sides. You can fill 50 sides of a book. Maximum 100 sides. That's how much has been reported, passed down of his exact statements. The other hadith are filled with Sahaba statements and their explanations. Does that make sense? Now, think about it. How many things would he have said in his time that haven't reached us now? Right? And then out of those things, only a fraction of the kind of statements have reached us. So whenever he talked about black seed oil, maybe he explained it to Sahaba in a way that hasn't reached us.
Okay. So
that we get like a snippet of what he said. So you imagine it like a film, right? Obviously we don't compare, the Prophet ﷺ to any films or anything, but this is just for relevancy. So you got this like a film, and you take out one statement in the film, one piece of dialogue in the film, and then you just like post it onto your social media. Just say so and so said this, without any context or anything. People are going to misconstrue 90% of the time what was being said. So I think what seems to be happening is that whenever people come across this, they seem to conflate the idea of treating yourself medicinally and between what the Prophet ﷺ was possibly saying. So this is why, for example, the hadith that you mentioned about the camel's urine. So this happened. Yeah. There's many hadith, sahih hadith that corroborate this. And it's like the hadith basically say what happened was there was a group of people, 7 guys, they accepted Islam, and they came from, where Arafat is, where you. So they were from a little like location there, Uqal and Urayna, 7 of them. So they come to Medina and they become ill because Medina was known for its climate. Like like when you go Pakistan and Bangladesh, you get ill.
Yeah.
Right. It was like that. It was called Yathrib. Medina was called Yathrib because Yathrib meant a dirty place. That's what it was called in the past, because people would get ill. So then what happened was that when the Prophet ﷺ came there, he actually made dua and Allah shifted away the illnesses, and he said, now we're going to call it tayyiba, like the opposite of it, which means like pure. So these guys come anyway in the early years of Islam, they accept Islam and they become ill. They get the narration mentions that they began to have swelling stomachs and yellow skin. So the Prophet ﷺ said to them, go outside of Medina and there's camels there. There's the camels of the sadaqah. And just stay there for a few days and drink their milk and their urine. You'll be okay. So they went there. Now, what does it mean, drink the milk and urine? Here's where there's a debate of the scholars. Like, there's a whole debate. The scholars say, what did the Prophet ﷺ mean when he said drink the milk and the urine? In fact, Imam Bukhari, one of the versions of Bukhari, one version, Imam Bukhari mentioned this hadith about 3 or 4 times. One version of his doesn't mention urine, just mentions drink the milk. Okay? And so this is why some of them say maybe what the Prophet ﷺ was saying was drink the milk and use the urine as an ointment on the skin, because camel's urine is very like strong. And this is like one of my students said he went to Saudi Arabia and they use it as for eczema. They use it as an ointment and it helps ease the scratching. So this is why this is one issue itself. Did he say drink the milk? Did he say use the milk? Like exactly what was he saying? Then was Allah telling him that the shifa is in this, as it's in that urine for their illness? Because we don't find any of the Sahabi ever using camel's urine as a treatment. We don't find it. So it's like, if it was something that was going to be used as a treatment, why is this something that we don't find like later on Sahaba kind of openly using it? So Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, Abu Yusuf say no, you don't use it. Yeah? And it's not allowed. It was something unique. We don't know the context behind it. And most likely it was abrogated because the Prophet ﷺ has categorically told Muslims stay away from all types of urine. Right? It's like a categorical sort of statement. Okay, so that's that. Then you have like some scholars like Imam Malik, right, and Imam Muhammad in the Hanafi madhab who actually say animals that we can eat, their urine's fine. So like sometimes you see in India people drinking the urine and all that, and they make fun of them. When they find out that Imam Muhammad and Imam Malik are okay with it.
It's not just in India, Mufti Saab. I make fun of them too, but carry on, Bismillah.
So basically that's the kind of issue that arises.
Imam Muhammad and Imam Malik would have issues with cow's urine or any
they're fine with it.
Halal to eat.
And see, this is where the issue comes. It's like a lot of people, they seem to think something is right in Islam if I feel it's right. So a lot of us are brought up feeling that animals' urine is wrong. So we feel it's wrong and we feel that Islam would say it's wrong. But Islam, gauging Islam based upon your personal own feeling or communal feeling isn't really the way we gauge Islam. It's based upon Quran and Sunnah. That's what it's based upon, as in what was revealed from Allah and what was told to us. That's why we obey Allah and His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Yes, we use our rational sort of like approach in trying to make sense of the laws, right? But that kind of feeling inside, right? So someone might argue, well, if Abu Hanifa and Abu Yusuf consider it to be impure and Imam Muhammad and Malik consider it to be clean, how is that possible? The reason it's possible is because it's a matter of ijtihad. It's a matter of trying to decipher the texts, basically. You're trying to make sense of, we don't know exactly what the Prophet ﷺ would have said about it. If we had got a time machine and went back in time and asked him, right, what's the ruling of this? So this is why, going back to what you were saying about the black seed oil. So the black seed oil issue, we don't really know exactly where it should be. In fact, Imam Ibn Qayyim has Tibb an-Nabawi, his famous prophetic medicine, that famous book that everyone sells in Amsons and I don't know, any other bookstores.
All other reputable bookstores.
We're not being sponsored by anyone, but if you do want to sponsor us,
we're not on Ofcom at the moment.
There's the email at the bottom. So basically that's the issue that you have. A lot of these hadith, like I'll give you an example. For example, like one day, Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhu, he said that the Prophet ﷺ said that a person is going to be punished in his grave because the family cry over them. A person is going to be punished in the grave because the family cry over them. Aisha radiyallahu anha heard this, and she said, who said this? And they said, oh, Ibn Umar is going around telling people that the Prophet ﷺ said this. She said he didn't understand what the Prophet ﷺ said. What the Prophet ﷺ said was there was a Jewish lady who died in the community once, and her family were crying. And he said, coincidentally, the woman is being given punishment in the grave, and the family is crying over her. As in, the crying had nothing to do with the punishment in the grave.
Yeah.
But it was just like a coincidental thing. Allah showed the Prophet ﷺ that in the grave she was being given azab, and the family was crying, and he just, stated what he was observing. That's all. So you see what happens. It's like this idea of when we have a hadith, how do we act upon it? Now, you can have one group of scholars will say, well, look, as a Muslim, right, what do I have to follow? And you say, okay, Quran and Sunnah. Well, they go, well, am I wrong if any Quran and Sunnah reaches me and I act upon it as it's reached me? Am I wrong? So we say you're not wrong, as in, yes, this has been an approach of some people in the past. But then what you're going to be doing, you're taking the Sharia so literally that then it can go into the realm of, misconstruing what the Prophet ﷺ said by taking a very literal stance on it. Like, for example, the Prophet ﷺ, like the example that you were saying about the trees, the grafting of the trees. Yeah, in Medina, when the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, and he saw them grafting the trees, and grafting is basically where you take one part of a tree and you place it into another part. It
like
kind
pollination
of
almost.
Yeah, it kind of fertilizes it, pollinates it.
Yeah.
So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Why are you doing this for?" So they thought from this is a wrong thing to do. We shouldn't be doing this. So when the harvest time came, hardly any fruit. So they came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, "Oh Messenger of Allah, you told us not to do this." He said, "No, I didn't." He says, when it comes to your matters, you people know better. When it comes to religious matters, I am the most knowledgeable about these things. So the Prophet ﷺ was teaching the Sahaba about how to solve problems in life. Yeah, so I think the Sahaba radiallahu anhu had struck the right balance. They understood the balance in how to act upon the religion and act upon the what's here as well, the world, the dunya as well. Yeah, so when it comes to these kind of medicinal things, right? Yeah. Ibn Qayyim in his book, Prophetic Medicine, he actually says there are some illnesses which black seed oil should not be used for, or how it should be used for certain ways for certain things. Yeah, for some people it might be ill. I mean, a newborn child, maybe giving it to a newborn child might be harmful for the child. Yeah, because it might have certain chemicals in there that might be harmful to the child's upbringing, and even honey, like some of the scholars say, like certain types of illnesses, honey can actually aggravate the illness, right? And there's different types of honey as well. There's so many array of honey, right?
Is it rewarding, Mufti Saab, if someone has the intent that, like, say for instance, I know a lot of people, their mothers or whatnot, they might cook and they'll put a bit of black seed in there with the intent that we're doing something or reviving something that was done in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Is there any reward to this, or is it just like good niyyah and stuff like that?
I mean, see, again, it goes back to the issue of that. Why are you doing it for? Like, then the question would arise: would there be reward for living in Medina? Would there be a reward if someone decided from now on, I'm just going to wear handmade cloth, like cloth that in the time of Sahaba was not made by machines? And someone says, I want to live in a mud hut, right? Or I want to ride a camel to work. I want to go on a donkey to work. Like, you can't say that person's like wrong, right? Because this was done by some of the best people in the world. So, but what we say is that was this the intent of the Sharia? Did the Prophet ﷺ intend for everyone till the Day of Judgment to ride a camel, or to get onto a donkey, or to wear certain clothing that they were wearing in them days, or to only eat food, cooked food, a few times a month? Because that's what basically they were doing, right? The Prophet Aisha radhiyallahu anha says 3 months went by and we didn't light the fire in the house. So you see what I'm saying is I believe we have to have consistency in this matter. If a person wants to act upon it personally, that's fine. But then when they kind of like can't see other people, right? When they want to impose it onto other people, that look, this is how you're supposed to be doing it. Like, if they see someone driving a car and see someone walking, which one's better? If they believe walking is better Islamically, then you have to prove it, isn't it? Then you're going into the realm of innovation.
Is there any food then, Mufti Saab, that it's rewarding to eat?
I mean, see, this is a whole this is a long kind of issue which goes into usul fiqh, and I don't think it's the kind of time that we have really to go into these kind of matters. But the question is that which aspects? See, this sounds very controversial. Because people have this like understanding of Islam, which is pure. I think it's predominantly based upon bayans. And if you kind of like, you know, take talks and you stitch them all together, and this becomes your Islam. Like you heard Sheikh Zaid say something, and you heard Sheikh Habla say something, and you heard Sheikh, I don't know, you know, Mufti Abdul Rahman say something, or Mufti Meng say something, or and you this is how you're building your Islam. This is a dangerous way of Islam. I personally think it's a very dangerous way of building your Islam, because you're not really understanding Islam. What you're doing is you're taking scholars that are coming from different parts of the world with different understandings, different approaches. I may be wrong, but I doubt it. And this is the dangerous thing. And a lot of people don't know this, because I mean, I know there's some people probably listen to me.
I probably was guilty of something like that, Musab, to be fair.
When
you puzzle your Islam together, you bring it all together, and you like, you bring a version of your religion up, and then you like, as you develop with it, you find it at odds with the world and how it operates.
Yeah.
And you find that you think it's the way that your religion is being implemented, and it's not. It's just your understanding of your religion.
Yeah.
Of course. And plus, opinions change, bro. Somebody could say something one day, and then tomorrow they might change their opinion, and you hold on to what this guy said at this moment in time, and this is your religion. But whereas he might have just said something at that time that he felt strongly about, but later he may have changed his mind.
Yeah. He's left you at that bus stop, innit?
Definitely, and I think this is where, you know, it becomes very confusing, where you have like a multi what's the word for it, multi madhab, yeah, or I don't know, society, right? And then everyone's kind of like trying to present what their sheikh's saying as being the correct way. So you got everyone kind of like the Hanafis saying the hours, and then you got amongst the Hanafis the Brelvi saying the hours, and the Deobandi saying hours, and then you got the Syrian Hanafi saying theirs, and then you got the Turkish Hanafi saying theirs, and the Malikis saying theirs, and the other Malikis theirs, and this Maliki theirs, and, you know, Hanbalis, this type of Hanbali. So there's so many types of people that are trying to push their kind of like version of Islam. I think it becomes very confusing for a lot of people as what they should do in these kind of things. So for instance, like I mean, I remember once I was giving, you know, when I did my evolution of fiqh the first time I done it, and one of the things that I mentioned, which was the Hanafis basically say anything that the Prophet ﷺ done as a leader and as a messenger is counted as sunnah. Anything that's not done as a leader and a messenger, you don't technically count it as being sunnah. It's just considered to be like a just a normal thing, right?
But if you did it because you love the Prophet ﷺ with the intent,
that's it. So like the
Prophet, you might get some reward for it.
Yeah.
Like I'll give you an example, Mufti Saab.
But what about those kind of habits that were there before then, and they were just continued on? So it's like, you know, there would have been things that the Prophet ﷺ did before Nabuwah, and then as soon as the Prophet ﷺ gets Nabuwah, he's doing the same things.
Exactly. And plus, I came across something recently that said that I think the Prophet ﷺ used to eat dates with cucumber. Now, if I were to eat dates with cucumber, even though for me that sounds a bit odd, but just I'm doing it just because the Prophet ﷺ did it, and I love the Prophet ﷺ. Is there anything wrong with doing that?
No, that's good. That's good. That's good.
It goes back to what you were saying about the whole Usul al-Fiqh thing.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, see, this is what I was saying to you. You can't say another person's approach is wrong. Yeah, because Sahaba didn't like this. I remember, you know, the Prophet ﷺ used to eat butternut squash. So you know butternut squash, like those small pumpkin kind of thing. So you know, one of our teachers, not our teachers, but teachers in our madrasa, he passed away. But he basically used to eat it for 21 years. He was eating it daily out of love for the Prophet ﷺ. So the doctor actually told him, "You're gonna die. Your insides have actually gone so weak because you keep eating this. Yeah, and you have to change your diet. You can't just eat one thing." And he refused. He said, "I'd rather die." So you get these kind of people out there. I mean, who will be very sort of like, you know, zealous about certain aspects of the Prophet's life. Like they'll be wearing imama all the time, and wearing the imama is not considered to be like a religious sort of thing. Yeah, and you know, these kind of things you'll get them, but you can't say they're wrong because they might be doing it out of love for the Prophet ﷺ. What we're saying is you can't impose it on other people.
Is my salah still valid if I don't wear a hat?
Well, I don't think a hat would fit on that bonnet, bro.
The question is, do you pray salat?
Allah.
I would say, Musab, if you could get a hat on that, I'd be impressed. You're one of those hairstyles that say Imam hairstyle, bro.
You could probably wear those rasta, the rasta ones, those sacks.
I have to wear a tawliya on my head, bro. A towel. A tea towel.
Mashallah, your hair is thick though, bro.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
Like I said, bro, in my family, we tend to go grey really early. So I had my first white hair when I was about 14, 15.
Whoa.
And we don't go bald that often. There are people in my family that are bald, but
It's fine though.
Well,
anyway, back to food. Sorry,
according to the Hanafis, you can put black in your hair if it comes out before its time.
Okay.
So before its time, if you get white hair, you can put black in
Musab,
there.
what does before it's time?
The 60-year-old man saying, before my time has come. They say roughly, the 40 kind of, late 30s.
Okay, it's fine though.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at some questions. Let's look at some questions, guys.
You have some dye in your hair, bro.
Okay, so
what your jabbar reminds me of now?
It's not a jabbar, man. It's just a top, bro.
Look, it reminds you of the Ahira thing.
yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
It does.
I thought it reminded you of another rainbow representative group.
It's not quite a rainbow though, isn't it?
Okay, guys, we got a question here. Sarah.
Yeah,
Also,
sounds
many
fine,
people
Rachel.
say eating certain parts of meat is sunnah. I can't remember the name. Maybe
Oh,
neck.
actually, on that point, I do have a question.
Yeah, go on.
As I was speaking to somebody about that tarid thing,
Yeah.
and they were saying to me that the Prophet ﷺ would, and at that time in Arabia, they would eat dried meat. Is that the same as like biltong and
Yeah,
beef jerky?
that's
and
it.
stuff?
That's it. So basically, they used to eat it simply because it was the only way of preserving the meat. They didn't have fridges.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, again, this kind of goes back into the issue of how the Sahaba used to do things. And I know I was telling you about, I was working on the Jahiliyyah course.
Mhm.
Yeah, and basically the Jahiliyyah course,
You have to teach Jahiliyyah.
I gotta teach
If I'm
Jahiliyyah
an expert,
before.
I don't know if I'm pointing in the right direction.
Down there.
For us, you're down there. For us, you're down there. So yeah, so basically the Jahiliyyah course was, I wanted to show people before Islam, like what was the Arab culture like what kind of food did they eat, what kind of clothes did they wear. So they actually used to wear, I'll tell you this, they used to wear leather socks, they used to use miswak, they used to do cupping, they used to do cauterization, they used to eat meat, they used to wear imamas, turbans, they used to wear long thobes, they used to have beards. So there's so many things that they had culturally. So when Islam came, like certain things that Islam came with, like someone asked a question, London asked a question, how do you know when the Prophet ﷺ did an action as a prophet or a leader? So this kind of goes into, like, does it fit into the kind of the frame of the law, the divine law that Allah has sent down? Does it fit into that kind of frame? Like, for example, walking, sleeping doesn't. Right? Walking, sleeping, eating, how you sit for eating as well. Some people will emphasize how you're supposed to sit, believing it to be something religious. Does that make sense?
Not.
But there's no kind of like, there's no sort of religiousness attached to it. Like, for example,
If how you want without feeling guilty.
that's it. See, if you find a narration where the Prophet ﷺ does
South
mention,
Africa.
Goodbye, South Africa. See you later.
I'm only joking, bros. I love you guys, man.
There is a fatwa from Majlis with your name on it, Mufti Sahib.
Ahmad, Naveed Ahmad, N Ahmad, you're gonna have a big article against you.
Reputation pending.
No, you're gonna have some
I'm only
like
joking, guys.
colourful language.
I just thought I'd lighten it up a bit because obviously this podcast is a bit light-hearted, but I felt today is obviously a very serious topic.
You chose the topic.
No, it's a serious topic because a lot of people ask questions and it's easy to get confused. Like I heard every time food was mentioned, for some reason the pollination thing about what Mufti Saab said about when people came to the Prophet ﷺ and they thought he said this, but he meant this, and so on. This is always mentioned, and I just wanted to clarify it, to be honest with you. And the whole thing about what should we eat, like if we replicate the diet of the Prophet ﷺ, is there any reward in it? Things like that. So they're playing on my mind. That's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, good question.
I think it's a good way. It's a good thing to ask. I think one of the things that I was looking at because obviously, when you say Khana Peena to me, it's a completely different thing, and when somebody who enjoys being in the kitchen and cooking stuff. So I was actually looking for things that the Prophet they would eat at the time of the Prophet and the Sahaba, and whether there were actually any ways of actually making stuff like that.
Yeah, get the date, get the cucumber, put it together, eat it.
No, there was a dish with flour and dates.
Yes, I told you in it, Prophetic Medicine, the book.
Yeah.
Get that. You can download it on PDF if you don't want to go and buy it.
Copyright this up.
But if you don't want to go and buy it, I'm just saying, for anyone who doesn't want to go buy it. But if you want to go and buy it.
Dig at his community there, or
so
Now, why have you got? I'm not fully Gujarati, so I don't really know.
You can't abandon Gujaratism now. You got to stick to it.
A long time ago. I'm British.
You sound like that guy. What's his name? Citizen Khan. You sound like Citizen Khan.
I'm British. I'm British. One of them, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah.
Have you guys got any comments or questions you guys want to take?
That was the Danish as well, mashallah, who's on Facebook. We've had a few questions on Facebook, Musab, if I can quickly run through.
Yeah, go on.
So I think one of the points that somebody was making, they said Sunnatul Huda against Sunnatul Ada.
Ada means enmity. Enmity, bro.
Umar has asked a question.
You just come out with a new type.
When I was like 5, could black seed oil have stopped that?
Who said that? Umar
Malik, your friend.
Umar Malik, mashallah, with his amazing setup. Umar should be like a shampoo advocate, bro.
He'd be the first bold shampoo.
I thought you said he should be a shampoo. I was thinking, what is he gonna be good for?
He'll be like that Malaysian advert with the hijab.
Oh yeah. Shalom.
Anyway.
Actually, that's it. Actually, there's the rest of them are just.
It pops at me basically.
Yeah. So I mean, look, if you think about it, let's say we had a time machine. All three of us had a time machine, and we're back in time, right? To the day. So what are we gonna eat? We're gonna eat their food, aren't we? So imagine people eating the average food that they were eating, like they're not really kind of getting extra reward for it. It's just the food they were eating before anyway. But yeah, like you were saying, if a person eats it with the love of the Prophet ﷺ in their heart, and someone's asked, Ibn Umar used to follow the Prophet ﷺ in very detailed matters. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Like he would even stop at a location, get down, urinate, and someone asked him, he said, because I saw the Prophet ﷺ doing this. So it was like his action, in fact, like later people, when Imam Malik was writing the Muwatta. So the Khalifa at that time, Mansur, he said to Imam Malik, can you write a book where you stay away from Ibn Umar's harsh opinions, like his harsh fatwas? Can you please stay away from those? Because they knew some Sahaba were very, very sort of particular about how they would do certain things, not because it represented Islam, but it's just it was their own personal discretion sort of actions that they were doing. And again, it goes back to the issue of, like I said, you can't blame someone if they're practicing Islam in a certain. Like I remember. There was a guy, he used to work in charity shop, and he goes, one day this lady came in.
It wasn't me.
And she opened her bag, and she pulled out a shroud. And she said to him, I walk around with this shroud everywhere. She was a revert. So you can imagine, someone who's accepted Islam, very passionate, and they hear about that, talks about death, and we're all going to die, and kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut, and when they wake up in the morning, they can't imagine anyone smiling all day. And then when you hear the narrations of Umar never smiled, when he went to, right? Well, obviously he did smile, there must have been so many.
The subject of charity, Mufti Sahab, I know some people that put perfume on the charity or on their zakat or sadaqah or whatever they're going to give before they hand it over to the
the qurbani.
Yeah.
That's a famous one. On the lamb, they dress the lamb up in back home. They make it look nice. They put athar on it and everything, bro.
Yeah.
They put athar on the lamb?
Yeah.
No, thanks, man.
We call it
marinade. Strange
marinade.
marinade, that, bro.
We call it marinade.
Bit of a strange one, that. Here's rose umber lamb.
And in fact, in the Sahaba's time, they actually used to put perfume in their hair.
Okay.
Yeah.
They never used to wear it in the clothes. They used to put it on in their hair in the middle parting, and they used to have a white kind of glow, like a discolor. Yeah, that's it, discoloring in the hair, because they used to put it right in the middle. That's where they used to put their perfume. So,
I need a lot of perfume.
so that's how it basically was in them days.
You don't have a middle to that bonnet, bro.
I look like one of the Beatles.
You know,
I'm not far off.
yeah.
For anyone that
Which
doesn't know
one
what a
that is,
Beatle is,
bro?
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Star.
Yeah,
Don't
so
worry about it.
so that's it. That's the, and this is why I said to you, this is a very, in a sense, very. It's going to be a very like a new topic for a lot of people. Like they won't have come across it like this before because they don't really study Islam at academic level. The Islam is based upon talks they hear, and when people give talks, unfortunately, we can't kind of like justify everyone's talks. We can't kind of endorse everyone's talks and give them the HMC stamp and say this guy's talk is legit and this guy's talk is. And nowadays that's a sad thing because anyone can give a talk, and the fiery the talk and the more emotional and the more sensitive you become in the talk, and you talk about these kind of like these small little issues, that's when you kind of pick up more followers. So this is the kind of thing.
I'm just about to give you an example, Mufti Sahib.
Nice clickbait, innit? Gotta have something a bit clickbait.
Brothers, at night, taking people away, making them glued to a screen. How dare you? Okay, anyway. But you mean stuff like that, Mufti Sahib?
How
Exactly.
have you got those ringtones on your phone already?
No, I just downloaded that, bro.
No, I reckon, you know what you're doing now? You walk around and when you're talking to people, you give them nasiha. You put it on in the background.
That's what I do, bro. That's exactly what I do. I've got loads of like weird stuff, like, cause I like memes, bro. And I like a lot of my friends, like, we troll each other.
Yeah, who was the first guy who came out with a meme? Who was the first guy? I want to meet that guy.
Kalandar Tabrezi. Now, I'll show you who it was. Mufti Sahib. It was this guy.
Oh, Amita Bachchan.
Yeah. Wearing this topi, he came out with the memes.
I think it was a Michael Jordan one was the first famous one, right? Where he was crying.
You know what the most famous meme at the moment is?
What year was that? And wasn't it that Chinese guy, that Chinese basketball player, with the kind of laughing face?
Possibly.
Have you seen that
You
kind
know
of
what the
Chinese
most
one?
famous meme at the moment is, Mufti Sahib?
Which one?
These funeral kind of guys here. I don't know what the correct term for them is. They're just dancing and holding the grave.
Oh, in Africa.
Yeah, the
African one.
pole bearers from Africa.
Yeah. Okay.
Bearer.
I think I've seen that one.
I've seen that from Ghana or something, innit?
Yeah.
Somebody sent it around as
Bit of a strange send off, innit? Especially if you're Muslim and you believe the body should be handled a particular way, and then all of a sudden it's this.
But that shows you, and it's like crazy. I remember once the first time I saw it was, remember there was a James Bond, an old James Bond, where he's in Africa or he's in one of those Caribbean countries, and someone dies, and they all have a big party and they all dance and they all sing and and that was the first time I heard about. That's how they send off their deceased. And then the next time I saw it was in a graveyard. I went for a janaza. And there was some people there at a grave, and they were singing and they were like clapping, and I was thinking, this is a weird way. Well, maybe like in the Quran, Allah mentions about the mushrikeen. Their worship is just screaming and clapping. That's how they kind of console themselves, and that's how they justify their. So I don't know.
That definitely needed a nasheed thing in the background of what you just said there. The mushrikeen.
The mushrikeen. Allahu Akbar.
You gotta go really loud in something, then you gotta go really quiet again.
Yeah.
You gotta say and
have you heard one of your lectures being edited and with the music and not the music, the nasheed thing in the background? Have you?
I might have done it myself.
You might have done it yourself.
Which one did you use? Move this up. Like, how do you pick which
I don't
one
know.
you use?
Basically, in my Jahiliyyah days, Jahiliyyah days, I used to basically download like YouTube backgrounds, and then I used to put them through the software, which used to take out just the kind of humming, right?
Yeah.
Just the humming. That's it. No kind of words, and then you put that in. So fun fact, guys. Fun fact.
But what would you put it onto, Mufti Sahib? I don't get.
So basically, what you do is you get a talk. So a lot of these guys do this, don't they? They get a talk from a scholar, and then they get like a background sound. You can buy them actually. You can buy them for like £2-3, sometimes £5-10, and then you just merge them together, and then you got
pay somebody £2 to hum for 3 minutes.
You just put a loop.
10 seconds only goes.
And nobody knows it's actually a yawn played backwards.
Yeah. Or it's like one of those Freemason kind of, you play the record backwards.
You backtrack it. Yeah. To be honest, that's one of the signs. If I hear a lecture and he's got that in the background, I automatically switch the lecture off.
Oh, speaking of things backwards, in school, I never used to get bullied. You know why?
Why?
Guess.
Because you speak backline.
Because zaman backwards is what?
Namaz.
Bingo.
So did you walk backwards because you were namazi?
Oh, this happened once. A guy was, I was in primary secondary school, and one guy was like making fun of my name, like Liaquat, Liaquat, right? One of those ones. And the other guy goes, "Don't place him. His name backwards, Zaman, is Namaz." And I go, "Oh, sorry."
You didn't go Broadway, did you?
Yeah, Broadway.
Oh no.
So basically, see, backwards
Was
it works.
What LDB? Is that some banger group?
LDB is a special unit in the school.
No, it was LDB. What was it called? It was called. And I had a different name, didn't it?
LDB, man.
Was it LDB?
Language and Development Base or something like that.
Yeah. I remember that classroom. We used to walk past it.
Some of the kids go in there and they come from like other countries or they're having.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
In Broader School, that was quite widespread.
Yeah, that was true, man.
Into the normal classes.
I remember my Urdu teacher, Mr. Saghir. Remember Mr. Saghir?
Are you Muslim or non-Muslim? Then shut up and do your work.
Yeah.
What?
The teacher used to ask you a question in class. Are you Muslim or non-Muslim? So you say I'm Muslim, then goes, then shut up and do your work. Nobody ever answered non-Muslim because obviously it's like 103% Muslim in that school was. Even the non-Muslim in that school would identify as a Muslim.
And guess what he used to do? When it was the exam, so we used to have like a listening exam where he plays a tape. So what he would do, he would say, "Do you know the answer to this?" And I would shake my head, no. Pause, write this. And then he would play. Okay.
What a legend.
And guess how much I got? B by B.
Even with him giving you all the answers, you only got a B.
So in that class, basically, everyone either got A star, most people got A star, or A, or B, very rarely C. D, no one in that class gets a D, right? That's like impossible.
It makes him look bad, doesn't it, obviously.
Yeah, so that's what used to happen, man. With all this.
Anybody memory lane.
I always eat jelly. In primary school, when we used to eat jelly, we used to say, eat it quickly. You know why? Jelly is Jesus. I had no idea. Jesus? Jelly and Jesus, they begin with J or something. I don't know what it was. It was a kind of very well known thing at that time. And it was either throw your jelly on the floor under the table, or eat it as quick as you can. Yeah, because remember them days we used to sing hymns in the hall. We were hymn singers.
What school is this at?
This is what we call Westminster School up my road. Westminster School. Well, I don't
know what school you went to.
We had some funny teachers who are now arrested.
Yeah, man. A lot of teachers from that generation, anyway.
Yeah.
At what age did you decide, or did your parents decide, or what made you become what you are today?
So basically, when I was in the womb of my mum, basically.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I became Hafiz. I became Hafiz.
Battling a lion, and he came out, battled the lion.
Did you come out with two Tuskies in either hand? One green one, one light blue
singing a nasheed as well. Came out.
He was singing a
Yeah, so that was.
What made you go to Pakistan? Of all places, like why?
So basically, what happened was when I was in college, I wasn't very practicing, right? So maybe some people here know about me in college. And then in the second year of A levels,
I still owe you £5 from back in the day.
No, with inflation.
Inflation.
So basically, there was a guy there, and then he would like kind of like talk to me about Islam and all that. So I started going for Zohr Salat, and then I saw this Maulana, Maulana Ifzal.
Yeah.
So I saw him coming down after praying his Zohr from Central Mosque. So this guy goes to me, this guy, yeah, he's learning Islamic law, and I that's the first time I heard about Islamic law. Like I thought, when you become Maulana, all you do is learn Quran, yeah, and that's it. Like and then you can give bayans. That's it. You never understand there's something known as Sunnah. You never understand there's something known as like my parents still today. All they think is I know Quran. That's it. Yeah. So my mom will say to me, like dream. Oh yeah, actually, mom thinks I know dreams as well. Dreams, taweez.
He's a dream interpreter. He writes taweez and he reads the Quran.
All with the same hand. So yeah.
When she sees you on the tablet, does she think you're doing it on the tablet now?
She's actually got a dream for me. She's had it for about 1 week, and I kept telling her I've got to look it up, which basically means
I don't know.
I don't know. But she doesn't take a no answer. So I've got to say to her,
this podcast, you're dead.
no, I hope she does it.
Well, Mufti Saab, you saw this Maulana and you thought that
Yeah.
you're gonna start. This guy is studying Islamic law, and you were intrigued.
Yeah. So I became intrigued. I thought, you know what? I want to learn what this Islamic law is, because this is an interesting thing. So then after that, I spoke to my parents. I wanted to study. I got a place in university as well, Aston University, to do computer software engineering. Basically, I would have been like a very famous celebrity. I don't know, software engineer. I probably
You've
might.
been on LinkedIn like this.
I might have my own rockets going into space. I might have had a whole, series of satellites being launched soon. And
You would have been on LinkedIn, and you would have been one of them guys in it that like
CEO, CEO of nothing, but something.
CEO, interpreter, no entrepreneur, no interpreter. Interpreter, same thing.
yeah, like eating with like standing in front of Lamborghinis,
Yeah,
going like this.
When you go on LinkedIn and you see you look at their post and like CEO or executive director, and you look at the company that the executive director of, you Google it and there's not even a web page for it.
Oh right.
It's just okay.
Give me 2 minutes.
It's like on people's CVs it says underwater ceramic specialist, and what that actually means is that you're a dishwasher.
Okay. All right, guys. Let's get back to the topic. Let's get back to the topic. Yeah. So okay, I'm going to mention to you now some things from Tibbul Nabawi, yeah? Some types of food that I mention. Okay. Yeah. So you want to know some foods? Say yes.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So he actually, in Tibbul Nabawi, he's got the first section. It's basically like alphabetical order. It goes through different types of foods, and then he kind of roots them back to the time of the Sahaba, and then he tells you over the years how people have used them in different ways. So for example, black seed oil. It's an interesting part about black seed oil. It's got. Let me try to find it. Okay, just check if there's any questions.
You know what meme you want to put in there, Nav? Now, 10 years later.
10 years later. Everyone bigs this stuff up at the moment, bro.
Okay.
It's not black seed.
Okay, look at this one.
Is it?
Yeah, so look at this one. He's talking about ithmid. Yeah, ithmid. Ithmid, the kind of surma you put in.
Yeah.
The original is ithmid. Yeah, ithmid. So he's saying it's a black stone that's powdered, and it's found in Persia. And there's different colors of it. You get red color and black color. And this is something which is cooling for the temperament, and it strengthens your nerves, and it protects your health. So you see, he's mentioning sort of possible remedies which were found later on. Yeah. And some people have even used honey.
Like the whole namaz one's really good for arthritis because
that's it. Yeah, so it's more like a sort of inductive kind of sort of extrapolation. And then he talks about honey. Some people use honey. They put honey in water and they put it in their eyes. Yeah, and some people add some sort of fat to it as well and put it in their eyes. So he's just basically collecting all sorts of things that have been passed down from the years. And then he talks about Okay.
Musab, is there one for for drinking oud or something, like mixing it with milk?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure. Okay,
Bro,
rice.
what is this, bro? You want to drink oud and you want to marinate your lamb with oud and this new obsession that you have with attar, bro. I've got loads of all of them.
Milk,
Remember
bro.
them Salama bottles that people used to give you when they come back from Saudi? The little one.
Oh yeah.
I got loads of them. When you open in the room, it stinks out the whole house. You could have all of them, bro. Marinate all your food in the future with it.
When I make my food in the future, I'll invite you now.
Okay, check this one out. Rice. Yeah.
Invite, brother.
Rice. He's
Yes,
mentioned rice amongst the prophetic foods. Yeah.
So where would they get rice from?
But he says the two hadith that are found regarding this, he's saying they're fabricated. Yeah.
Okay.
But he says that this did exist at that time, but it was imported. Right. It must have been a luxury food. Not everyone had. Would have most likely been imported from Persia or somewhere. He says that the Indians, the Indian physicians claim that it's the best food and the most beneficial, obviously because that's the only food that they have. That's the only main food they have there.
When you're ill, you're ill because you don't eat roti.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so then he says, okay, let's go to another one. Okay, but watermelons. Watermelon, yeah, like you mentioned.
Everyone's favorite.
Yeah. He says watermelon. He goes, there's many hadith. There's most of the hadith, nearly all the hadith are fabricated or weak, except for one. That famous one with the watermelon with the with the dates one. That's the only one. And it's the most digesting food. It's very good for the intestines, or digestive system. Dry dates. So balah, dry dates. So he's talked about dry dates. He talks about moist dates, fresh dates, the benefits of these. So you see, a lot of these things, they're not from the Prophet ﷺ. We don't have any authentic sort of way of application from the Prophet ﷺ, except for very few things that he mentions. Like there's one like in a hadith of Ali radiallahu anhu, that Ali had some sort of illness, and the Prophet ﷺ told him to get some talbina, like the kind of barley, mix it with some dates and things, and eat that, and it was supposed to be good for his heart. And then he actually quotes a lot of Ibn Sina, Avencia, Ibn Sina. He quotes a lot of him in this as well, because he mentions a lot of medicinal sort of remedies. Onions, he talks about onions. So there's loads of kind of foods. So if you read this book, nearly all the foods that we eat, nearly everything that we eat every day, there is some sort of like a usage of it, or it was eaten in the time of Sahaba.
I didn't expect that.
If you were to avoid eating garlic because of so and so reason, would there be any reward in it?
Your intention in it. So your intention was you don't want to harm other people. Like the hadith mentions in it that whoever's eaten raw onions and raw garlic, he shouldn't come to our masjid. Yeah, but if it's cooked, the scholars say if it's cooked, it's fine. The idea is bad smell. So it doesn't just mean these two things. It could be other things. Like some people eat a very dry fish that smells really bad. And
Some people will avoid this stuff, but they'll never use deodorant and think it's okay.
Yeah, that's it. Or bad smelling socks, these kind of things. So see, that's what I said in the beginning. Some people will take literally what the Prophet ﷺ says, but they won't expand that to other things in our society. They won't extend it to other issues. Like someone with smell of cigarettes, they'll stand next to you in salat and stink really bad. And they'll say, well, it doesn't come in a hadith that, you can't smell the cigarettes.
I can't smoke, yeah.
Does that make sense? So this is where I was saying we don't have consistency in our understanding application of, of these kind of rules. So when it comes to these medicines and it comes to these foods, again, I think a lot of people need to understand that definitely we have a very important thing. We haven't talked about the issue of ethical food as well. I think that is more sunnah. The whole concept of
ethics of how food is made or produced.
Yeah, there's actually a book here. Where's that book? Yeah, let me show you this book. This is a good book. This is a book that my wife's been reading. Yeah. Then and Now. And it talks all about food that was eaten then in the time of Sahaba and now what we eat. And it mentions like loads of things about, food that is, for example, like in the past people used to forage for their food. So they would only eat what they find, right? beggars can't be choosers basically. But nowadays we have so much of a choice. This also has an impact on health as well. In the past, food was generally wholesome. In fact, some of the scholars, like the hadith with regards to if a person was to go to sleep, right, their wudu breaks, right, if they go to sleep lying down, all right. But the Prophet ﷺ said that if a person goes to sleep in salat, his wudu don't break. Now, some of the scholars, like for example Hassan Basri and others, later on, they actually said that in our times their wudu would break because the food has changed. As in, the Prophet ﷺ was talking to Sahaba based upon their diet of their days. And our days, because the diet has changed, we eat so much food, and it's not like a wholesome food. It's got mixed ingredients, and it's got so much, what's the word, preservatives and all these kind of artificial things in there, and that has an effect on the digestion. So he says the Prophet ﷺ was talking about his days, not about our days. This is another way of looking at hadith as well, that sometimes the Prophet ﷺ was speaking to Sahaba. It wasn't a ruling until the Day of Judgment. He was just telling the people that were at his time, guys, you guys are eating this food, right? It's fine. So your wudu will be okay. The average person's wudu will be fine. But now it's like, guy prays salat, goes into sajda, goes into ruku.
Game over.
Game over, bro. Yeah.
Game over.
It happened in our mosque, mate. It happened in our mosque with an imam who went into sajda.
Yeah.
And because he went into sajda, the microphone picked up the sound. And everyone broke their salat and burst out laughing.
Everyone broke the wudu as well.
And the wudu broke, and everyone had to go and do their wudu again. But see, the point is, when we look at the sunnah, we have to look at the sunnah a very sort of like sensible way, approach in a sensible manner.
Before you do go on, that's the next level imam in it. Like, even when he broke his wudu, everyone followed him in breaking the wudu as well. I'm just saying,
that was in Birmingham Jami Masjid, was it?
I'm not saying, bro.
No names.
No names.
It could never be Birmingham Jami Masjid.
We are non-sectarian, non-biased.
on a slightly similar subject, Mufti Sahib, just going away from what you're talking about initially, what was the favourite food of the Prophet ﷺ?
The Prophet ﷺ's favourite food was, one of the favourite foods was, I told you, butternut squash.
Yeah.
He used to love that a lot. Yeah.
What about aubergines?
He used to like dates as well. See, the thing was, the Prophet, when we say favourite foods, it was like they didn't have much in them days anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we live in a society where we kind of like favoritizing everything. Favorite car, favorite this, favorite time of sleeping. What's your favorite dream? What's your favorite, what's your favorite wrinkle on your face?
Matrix, brother.
What's your favorite wrinkle on your face? What? So we have lots of this kind of favorite. I don't know where it comes from. Who started this favoritism off. But in the time of Sahaba, they didn't have a lot. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ did have favorite things, but it wasn't like a favorite. It was like one of the ones that he used to enjoy a lot. Yeah, so he used to enjoy meat, but he never used to get to eat it, right? Even though people would have generously given him meat, but the Prophet ﷺ, obviously, he was in a situation where he would rather feed other people than to see them starve. And Umar radiallahu anh the same as well. Umar radiallahu used to eat a lot of dry bread with vinegar. And this is a common thing that people ask. Can you have white wine vinegar? Can you have red wine vinegar? They're all halal. All vinegars are halal. As long as it says vinegar on the bottle, it's halal, yeah? Basically. Because vinegars are made from alcohol. There's a process. Yeah? You take grapes or dates or rice or whatever. You make it into alcohol and then you make it into vinegar. This is how they did things in the day of Sahaba. So this process of transformation, right, is where we get the ruling of, as long as an ingredient has fully transformed into something else, it becomes halal.
Mustafa, I think you got some questions on YouTube.
What are they saying? So would it be good for researchers to do studies on these foods to see their effects? Definitely. I mean, I think that would be a more sunnah thing to do. The sunnah thing to do would be to see the ethical side of food today. Like meat, where are we getting our meat from? Is it sunnah to eat meat that's been cooped up in a cage for so long? Is it sunnah to eat meat that's been injected with all sorts of chemicals? these kind of things would I would say would come under sunnah, because it falls under the treatment, the rights of animals, and which is clearly part of the message of the Prophet ﷺ. He came to give everyone their rights. And like people nowadays, might be thinking something like, oh, maybe dates are totally sunnah, right? Let's buy from Israel, or let's buy, you don't care where you get it from. So it's like the issue is not about eating. I would say it's more about this idea of being a Muslim when you eat. The Muslim side, halal and tayyiban. It being halal and it being something which is tayyib. And I remember one of the scholars, who I think was Sheikh Hamza Yusuf or someone, he said a good point, which I didn't really come across. I saw it in tafsir, but I never thought of it that way. It was that in the time of the Sahaba, the food was all wholesome anyway. You know what I'm saying? What they used to eat in them days,
Anyway,
and they were being told to eat wholesome food. In other words, they were being told to be careful about what they were eating. So imagine nowadays, right, where you got all these, one food has got 20 ingredients in there, and a lot of these ingredients are only there, like flour. In the book it mentions flour. They put bleach flour to make it white. Yeah, because they know we don't buy, if it's not white, we're not going to buy it, even though that's the natural way, like a yellowish flour. That's the natural way you get it. And pink salmon, they actually put some dye in some of the salmons. There's a whole documentary I was watching about just for prawns, just because people want prawns, so much of the sea life has to suffer because just people want prawns, and it's caused a big problem in fishing industry. And we don't even know the laws of fishing industry. If you understand those laws, you'll realize how greedy people are, and these big multinational organizations, how corrupt they are in trying to usurp the rights of these poor countries, simply because they just want to put cheap stuff on the plates. And we all don't have the money to buy organic stuff all the time. And even organic, I was speaking to one guy, he goes to me, there's the normal farm eggs, you get organic eggs, and then you get something else, I don't know what it's called, I think it's super organic or something, right? And for it to be organic, it has to go out of the cage for a few months of the year. So it's still in cages by law, but because we hear this word organic, we kind of like make ourselves feel a bit more at rest, our hearts at rest. At least I'm doing something, it's organic.
Yeah.
But it's still abusing the animal.
It's crazy most of the time, because certain fruit, we're used to it looking like something out of like a TV advert over here, but then you go abroad and it doesn't look half as appealing, but when you taste it, it tastes like twice as good.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys have found the same thing.
Yeah, sometimes you do. Like I definitely noticed the difference in chicken and meat taste and eggs when you go abroad. You definitely notice the difference. In those items.
Yeah, definitely.
Even citrusy fruit, bro.
Yeah, I think the thing is though, and I've been thinking about this for a while. I've not done anything about it at the moment, but something that meat wise I have done something about it, but chicken wise not yet. Meat wise now I've decided just lump sum buy all my meat together from an organic kind of type of farm.
Where's that? The one in Oxford.
Hill Farm.
So
you could see the lambs and stuff running around in his fields, and they run around. They're not dancing.
Does that kind of bring tears to your eyes? You see this?
The thing is, Musab, I'm more than happy to eat less and pay more.
Okay.
Which means in essence you pay the same amount over the week.
Yeah. Right.
For meat, but the chicken one's a bit more difficult because the organic chickens that you can get hold of here, they look like they've been on a diet.
It's scary. I mean,
so heavily priced.
Yes.
We used to crack this joke, we used to go to, I'm not going to name the chip shop, but it used to sell 2-piece chicken and chips for 99p. And the joke was it was pigeon meat.
I wouldn't be surprised.
We didn't call it chicken and chips, we used to call it pigeon and chips.
You know
I
what?
remember that once when we brought the London guys down to Birmingham and we took them to the chippy. And we fed 5 people for a tenner.
Whoa.
And the London guys were like, what the heck?
What was that, Panga?
Must have been Panga, innit?
Yeah, Panga. There's a documentary on Panga. What's this documentary on Panga? Because it comes from Vietnam, doesn't it? A lot of it.
Yeah.
And the state of the water, astaghfirullah. It had like 15 foot of filth in there. 15 foot of filth. And the guy was saying all we do is they spill the fish feed, and if they don't eat it, it starts to rot, and they just spill on top of it more fish feed, and that's how they survive. And they put these chemicals in there as well to make it grow.
Yeah.
And
I remember you couldn't get any other type of fish when you went to a fish and chip shop other than cod. But then someone must have discovered panga and thought, I'm going to show these guys. And then masala fish came on the scene. I think they could really start messing about when masala fish came on the scene.
You know, I had a friend, right? You know, when it was in Pakistan, when we used to, well, basically in Pakistan, what used to happen was when you used to have qurbani, slaughtering animals. So people keep like a goat before, like they buy a goat about a week or two before, they feed it, they take it around and all that. And it's like crazy, like the week before qurbani, everyone's like running on the streets with their animals. And you get this random like bull just running up and down, smashing cars. Yeah, like gone loose or something, and the owners are trying to catch it.
Is it Spain we're talking about, or talking about Pakistan?
In Karachi, still in Karachi.
He's talking about hands up.
Oh yeah, hands on other things happen. But yeah, so one of my friends, he goes, you know what we do? We actually buy the goat as a lamb 6 months before, and we feed it, we take care of it, the family starts to love it, and then when the time comes to slaughter, it's like it affects everyone in the family. And he said, this is what we believe, what was the whole point of the qurbani. That is sacrificing, you feel the sacrifice, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, the sacrifice. It's
That
like,
makes
so it's kind of like reenacting it, isn't it? So he says, the whole family used to feel sad, some used to cry even, because we were sacrificed as one member of our family. But we're doing it for Allah's sake. So it was...
And then everybody enjoyed the kebabs afterwards.
That's it, everyone likes the tikkas
And
and
if that's the case, you're naturally going to eat less meat anyway, because you don't want to kill one of your friends every day, innit?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think these kind of things are very more important than the specific sort of like, you know, I want to eat what the Prophet ﷺ ate, these kind of things. But even if you're going to eat the what the Prophet ﷺ ate, the quality of what the Prophet ﷺ would have eaten, the Sahaba would have eaten, would have been very different from the quality of what we're eating today anyway. Yeah, so I think that's more important, the quality, you know, being Sunnah rather than... And I think maybe in the future some organization is going to pop up, just like HMC, or maybe HMC will have to evolve into certifying certain types. Because I know I heard that Jews do this. Their kosher meat is actually, if you've ever eaten it, I've eaten it. So I went to, you know, when you go to Israel, when you go to Palestine, basically, right? We went to Palestine, we went a trip the whole country. So everywhere you go, written on every shop, it says kosher. So I think by law over there, everything has to be kosher, right? If it's a Muslim area, then...
It's like Africa, certain parts of Africa, everything has to be halal by default, even if the country might not be overwhelmingly Muslim.
Okay. So yeah, so we went to McDonald's. So we went to McDonald's, yeah, and...
in Palestine, mashallah.
In Palestine, yeah. So basically, and there were Palestinians working there. So they actually had kosher burger, and you know the meat, the burger, the chicken burger that they had, the meat tastes very, very good, like excellent meat it was. And they said that basically what we do is we have to take care of the animals as well. So they have to not only slaughter the animal in the the ritual way, but they also have to take care of the animal. And wherever we went in the country, right, the meat was a very good quality. Like, I mean, if you go to Palestine, that's what I would suggest you do. Rent a car, go with your family, and then just book some, Airbnb. Just book some like places up and down the country. You can go to Haifa, is a nice place to go to. You can go to Jaffa, right, where they have the oranges, Majula dates. You can go to Akka, which is right at the top by Lebanon. Very nice Muslim community there.
Is that the historical one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Where all the battles took place.
That's the one, yeah. So we went there. We went all sorts of places, yeah, and it's very nice. They won't say anything to you, right?
I heard the food in Palestine in general is very, very nice.
Very good, yeah, definitely. And you're right. Wherever the food is localized, it tastes better. And where you have this globalization of food, where it's coming in from different countries, it just doesn't kind of like taste right.
As Brits, we'd just be eating meat and potatoes if we didn't globalize food.
I mean, even if we were to eat vegetables, like, the argument is that if you were to go become a vegan, you're going to harm the environment because you're going to have more grass, and you're going to have more vegetation, and then, you're going to have to land for that, and you're going to have to do all those other things, because people don't understand. It's easy to say I want to become a vegan, but then if 60 million people in the UK want to become vegan overnight, right? What's going to happen to all the cows? What's going to happen to all these other animals? What's going to happen? Where are we going to start planting? How are we going to start growing? Lots of changes will have to take place.
Of course.
So I think
the scary thing about that, Mufti Saab, there are a few people that obviously went vegan for medicinal and health reasons, but then later on they fall into the argument like, you know, we shouldn't eat meat because of this, and then they push the whole thing about, you know what you were saying, but a more extreme version of it, because nothing's actually halal.
Everybody's just watching that Netflix thing now.
Yeah,
And
nothing's actually halal because it's not slaughtered in the same way that it was in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, because it's like on the conveyor belt. This is that. So because of all these reasons, I'm only gonna eat vegan food.
Oh, is that a guy? Is that guy that comes up?
The one I saw was the Qurbani. You know, we're gonna sacrifice a cucumber. No, I mean, like they said, we're not gonna do an animal. We're gonna do a vegetable or something, or give money.
But those people are vegetables. I mean, carry on. Sorry.
Is that the guy that comes every Qurbani on social media, and he's kind of writing articles against meat and all that?
Yeah.
See,
they do like some campaign.
See, this is like a kind of like a problem that people will naturally have when they're trying to understand the religion in their society. As in, when we understand the religion outside, do we stick to the traditional sort of like way that has been passed down to us in the narrations and the understanding of the ayats in that manner? Or do we look at the kind of like overall sort of like spirit of the what's the kind of overall spirit of the Sharia when it comes to this masala? Like, for example, going for Hajj, right? What's the spirit of it? Right? If a person took their Hajj money and instead of going for Hajj was to give it to orphans, is that better or going for Hajj? Does that make sense? Or for example, like fasting, instead of fasting, if you were to, let's say, do like a yoga sort of thing, you know.
Have you seen that one, though, Musab? That whole line around the commercialization of Hajj. So I'm not going to go on Hajj because it's commercialized.
Yeah. And we are going to face these things in the future anyway. I guarantee you, these are going to become issues Muslims are going to raise, just like the moon wars that you have now, and you have, you know, all these kind of like globalization and you know,
local sighting.
Yeah.
But the voice of maqsad.
Yeah. So you have that.
You know that type, Mufti Saab.
Definitely. And this is why, you know, it's very important to have these kind of discussions. Right? Because these kind of discussions, what they do is they open up people, they make people realize that, look, this is what we're going to be facing with. What are you going to do in the future? How do you see your practicing of Islam being affected by this? You know, and living in the West, you know, you got now Muslims that don't have an issue with LGBT. You got, you know, things like Muslims not having an issue with having, you know, let's say, for example, a female imam or a Muslim woman marrying a Christian man, or these kind of things, which is very marginal, extreme minority. But the question is that their voices seem to be the loudest on the media. Yeah, the media are deliberately kind of putting their voices up. So we need to have an understanding of our tradition. Our tradition is a very strong tradition. Yeah, it's a very sound. It makes sense. But when you don't present it in a sensical way, you don't present it in a reasonable way, what's going to happen is people are just going to think, you know what, these Maulvis, like, you know, you always get people that saying, I put that video up about the Hanafis where, you know, you can't read with the Quran, you know, open, right? You can't like read Tarawih with the Quran open. And you always get like those guys in the comments, read the comments, it's funny, man. Some guys say, who is Abu Hanifa? What about this hadith? What about this? So that guy is speaking from a very, 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 you know, and you can say like an uneducated position.
So,
yeah.
Did you write an article saying that you can't have the Mus'haf open, or that's the Hanafi position?
No article. I made a video.
You made a video about it?
Yeah.
Did you include the fact that you have your tablet on?
No, I told people, bye. I told people, this is the Hanafi position, and I'm telling you, I'm not taking the Hanafi position on this. I'm acting upon this. I told people.
You should do another show called How Hanafi Are You?
You might get refuted.
I think I'm about.
Mufti Saab starts eating the prawn sandwich.
No. Lobster.
Actually, prawns are nice, mate. Don't say anything about prawns.
What about lobsters?
I haven't had lobster so far.
Crabs?
I had crabs. Basically, in our madrasa, we had Shafis in our madrasa.
Sorry, that means something else from my generation.
Okay, we won't ask what that means. Yeah.
What's your generation? You're born in the 80s, bro.
No, he's still in the 80s with that shirt. With that shirt, he's still in the 80s. You know what he looks like? He looks like, this is like no kind of like cuss or anything. You know, Jimmy Savile, the kind of clothes that he used to wear.
All right, Mufti Saab, thank you.
No
Thank you
joke.
for taking it there.
Only joke. I'm sure I saw him once with a jumper and he had those kind of lines in there.
1 minute you attributed it to AIRA, the Dawah organization. 1 minute I'm Jimmy Savile. Chalo, I'll take whatever you guys throw at me.
I
Yeah.
just think you look like a barcode, bro.
Okay, so come on, let's try to just wrap it up. What were the main things that we were supposed to talk about? So we talked about medicine, did we?
The prophetic medicine.
Yeah.
And our understanding
So I think
of
this
things
summary. So okay, so what did you get from the summary of the prophetic medicine then?
that not everything is explicit. And
Okay, so if someone says this to
Right.
you, okay, let's say someone says this to you, do I have to get it checked by my doctor if I can take honey for this particular illness, or can I just take it? Because some people say that don't you have trust in the hadith or the ayats that honey is shifa.
I would say to them, you need to go to the doctor, and what you do at home, eating honey, black seed oil, or whatever else is your choice. Just go to the doctors.
It just depends on the person as well. If they
Because
got
sometimes you
medical
can't tell a
condition.
person, and oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to explain it to you properly. You just say just go to the doctors.
Yeah.
Because if you explain it to them and start to break it down to some depth, people are just like, oh, you're one of those funny Muslims.
Yeah.
It just depends on the person at the end of the day. What if they got an allergy to honey and you're like, yeah, at home, do what you want.
And what if they send you the video of that guy from Pakistan telling you about the eating 3 pigeons will save you from coronavirus?
Oh, God. Did you ever see that?
Oh, the guy that goes like this.
And then like the cars tumble and the wall falls down. That was a funny one, man.
Oh, the guy
Yeah.
that does dumb, innit? Mr.
Yeah.
Choo-choo, man.
So unfortunately, that's what happens. Unfortunately, when people don't understand the workings behind the Sharia, and they just take these statements and they create this own understanding of how these statements work. That's a sad thing. It just makes like cutting the fruit and finding the name of Allah in there. That's the pinnacle of their religion. It's like it does not mean no Sahabi ever cut a fruit. If no Sahabi found the name of Allah, right, and you finding the name of Allah, yeah, or if you turn it upside down, it says something else, or whatever.
You gotta turn it upside down. You gotta poke him in the eye, right, and then you gotta put it by a mirror.
Like this if you love Allah. So, if you scroll on, you're a kafir.
You know, we used to say that in school. I don't know if we say that in school. If you love Allah, yeah, do this. Jump over the fence. Get the ball.
1 like equals Allahu Akbar, 2 like and smiley face equals Subhanallah. You know this new code that exists on social media.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah. So someone's asked this question. Have you discussed psychiatric medicine? I think this is a very important. OCD. Some people have such a bad condition of OCD, yeah, and they feel as though the doctor will not understand their situation. Like, for example, they got a problem with istinja, going toilet, washing themselves. And they'll be washing and filling up the jug and washing, and they'll probably burn themselves out. And they feel the doctor doesn't have the solution. They feel that the Maulana has the solution. I mean, recently I had this one guy, he contacted me because of a certain issue that he has, yeah. Inclination towards a certain gender, basically. So he contacted me thinking that I've got the solution for it. Like, why is he inclined towards this particular gender? And he thought I've got the solution. I said to him, look, I'm not trained in this. This is not an Islamic thing. Like, why a person has if a person is inclined towards a donkey, or if a person's inclined towards a wall, or if he's inclined towards doing certain things. And I said, look, I'm not trained in this. This is to do with your own sort of like mind. I can tell you what Islam says about if you want to do this. I can tell you it's wrong, but I can't tell you how to fix yourself. Right? And I think this is where people make a mistake. They think that the scholar has a solution to everything. And how comes the scholar doesn't? And when certain scholars, they don't tell people, I personally feel this, when certain scholars publicly don't tell people the limits of what they know,
yeah,
it automatically kind of makes them feel that every scholar who graduates needs to know all this. Why does he know this for? My scholar knows all this. My scholar knows how to cure COVID. My scholar knows how to rid the world of poverty. My scholar knows this. My scholar knows how the British politics should work. My scholar knows this. And then it's like, what, is your scholar some sort of like that what's it what's it in X-Men? What's that? Professor Xavier. Is he Professor Xavier that can solve everything in the entire world? And I think this is also something scholars should do. Scholars should, Imam Malik, a guy came from Spain. He asked him, imagine that Spain, 3,000 miles away, comes to him and he asks him 40 questions, really serious, proper questions. Imam Malik, 36 of them, Imam Malik goes, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. The guy goes, I've come to you, Imam Malik. Who am I going to go to? He goes, I don't know. As in, I don't have the answers to everything. So I think it's important. It's a sunnah as well, because the Prophet ﷺ used to do this as well. In fact, like when people used to come to him and a verse wasn't revealed, he would just say to them, I don't know. Yeah, and then
That's
later.
why most of I had to unfollow a couple of scholars when recently on Facebook, man, just because like some of the stuff they're coming out with, man, they were doing the whole 5G thing and coronavirus is this and that.
And
And I just went,
were
you know
they
what?
were they selling you the ACN? What's it called? A few.
You know what it is? You know the conspiracy theorists, Mufti, this is like something that's genuinely, troubling. Is that those people that generally come up with the conspiracy theories are also like the ones that are shutting ACN, that are that find all the conspiracies as well. They're the guy that's the most woke. Everybody
But
else.
the first bro to get the vaccination at the same time, innit?
Yeah.
No, they won't get the vaccination. You know what it
Well,
is?
they've got it already, but they've told you not to get it. Undercover.
And see, this is sorry for interrupting you. This is like a sort of like a toxic. This is a toxic way of propagating the deen. So there are toxic ways, because the Quran mentions about the rabbis. They had a toxic way of telling the people about their religion. By not telling the people to follow the Prophet ﷺ, Allah says in the Quran they were concealing the religion, and the worst punishment that's going to be given is going to be given to those educated people who don't tell people their limits. Yeah, and this is a scary thing, and this is why we all need to know our limits. So if someone asks you a question, you need to know. There's one guy, like I said, he contacted me regarding OCD, and I told him, look, you have to see a doctor. I'm not joking around. I'm not saying this to fob you off. I'm telling you because I've spoken to doctors, and there are 3 or 4 doctors I've spoken to, my students, and they've said that this problem is not an Islamic problem. It's a human problem. You have people who will touch the light when they're turning it off 4 or 5 times. They keep touching it because they think, or checking the back door, or checking the gas, in the kitchen, have they turned it off or not, or checking the alarm, have they turned the alarm on in the car, have they done this, have they done that. So I think this is something that we need to really kind of think about in our community as well, right? And yeah,
like you were saying, but there's so many people out there that will just blame. They'll just to keep intact that they've got all the answer. They'll just blame something like this on waswasa, and then that's it. The person's none the wiser, and then the problem still exists.
Yeah.
But the thing is that they don't see the impact that it has on their lives, like how long it takes them to pray namaz, how long it takes them to do wudu, how it affects.
You know, brother, I'm not going to mention him. I'm sure Mufti Sahib probably even knows that. This guy, whenever he goes to the masjid, he has to clean all the taps before he makes wudu. Like all the taps on the wudu area, he has to clean them all.
Yeah, that's a thing that's gonna create a problem. And I've seen people who have actually come to me, cried to me, and said, "I want to leave Islam." And I said, "Why you want to leave?" And they go, "Because I can't take it anymore. It's just too much for me." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Simply because it takes me 25 minutes, 30 minutes to clean myself in the toilet." I said, "That's got nothing to do with Islam. I don't know why you're doing it for." And then I told the guy, "Go see a doctor." I don't know if he went to see a doctor. And usually the doctors give them some I know obviously those medicines are not really good for them. And the medicines are designed to kind of the kind of suppress that kind of part of the brain. Yeah, and it kind of gives them sleep as well, and they get over it. It's kind of, you have to break this routine. So unfortunately, and then when you get like these kind of speakers or scholars, or if you wherever they are, and then they say, right, read this dua, you'll be okay, right? Yeah. And it's like you create this culture of duas, taweez, dreams, all the things that are abstract that have no direct connection with the Sharia. But it's like your escape card, right? You can live 40, 50 years preaching to the people, dreams, taweez, du'as. You can, live amongst them, be praised amongst them, but you don't provide them with any proper solution. Yeah, and then when you get the scholar who actually talks about the problems of the community in the Jummah talk, and doesn't talk about sort of like sensationalized, topics. It's like the guy thinking, what's this guy on about? Right? Why are you talking about these kind of things for talk about? I had this one guy once, I remember. If you've been to my Jummah talks, I normally talk about problems that people are facing. There's one guy came to me and he goes to me, "You talk about youth. Why didn't you talk about parents?" And I was thinking, oh my God. I was gonna say to him, he was a Maulana anyway, and I was gonna say to him, look, the problem is, this is what I was thinking in my mind, but I was gonna say then he's a bit older than me. I was gonna say the problem is the youth are the ones that are leaving Islam. They have the doubts. You don't have a doubt. Uncles don't have doubts. They come to the mosque, sit on the chairs, yeah, read the Quran, sit in first saf. They will never have a doubt about Islam in their life because the way that they follow Islam, Allah knows best. Is it's that kind of like born and brought up kind of way of following Islam without ever coming into contact with Richard Dawkins topics or discussions or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the youth, they're like, I had a guy, imagine this, a guy who's an imam's son in Birmingham, an imam's son. I had to speak to him 45 minutes because he said he wants to leave Islam. Why? Because it was the way his dad was imposing Islam on the family. And I said to him, look, you don't have to follow your dad. Your dad is not Islam. Islam is greater than your dad, end of the day. And if your dad believes this about Islam and this is how Islam should be imposed, I go, then that's wrong. You do not have to follow your dad in these things. And then at the end of it, he said to me, look, I feel better now. He goes, but you can imagine if that's one guy, how many people out there who feel too shy to go and speak to scholars, right? Like these kind of topics we're having here. If scholars were doing this regularly, or people that were learned, like you two, mashallah, then we'd have more.
Look at the books.
Yeah, ijazas. You two got ijazas now. That's it.
All of my ijazas are behind me now.
And I think that's one of the problems. I may be wrong, but I am. But by the way, they see opposite. Yeah, they see the other way around.
I doubt I'm ever wrong.
My wall is full of
the
ijazas.
conversation we had. Would people, from like a similar upbringing to yourself, that people that have gone to a similar madrasa system, etc., would they find it problematic, some of the subjects that we've discussed in the manner that we've discussed them?
Probably, I think, yeah. A lot of people would, definitely. You see, the madrasa system, majority of madrasa systems are not designed to make people functional in the society, unfortunately. Like a university and a college it's designed in such a way, the courses are designed that when a person graduates, it's easy for them to do a transition from academia to society. Like they don't have a problem. Madrasa system, the only transition they can do is to become an imam, to become a maktab teacher, to become a madrasa teacher, so one of those kind of like jobs, professions. But if they were to go into office work, if they were to go into working labor and stuff like that, or working, for example, giving consultation to, let's say, some particular organization, they'd find it too difficult. Because Altaf would probably know this a lot because he's had a lot of sort of like interaction with, working with, different type background people.
Yeah.
This is what I personally think. When I graduated, I would say I was like that as well. I remember the first time I had a university talk.
Yeah.
I was thinking in my head, university, these guys are probably going to pull out these kind of, difficult topics and, very controversial issues, like Zakir Naik when people ask him those questions. And I went to Sheikh Zaid, I remember, and I said to Sheikh Zaid, Sheikh, what do you think? Should I give a talk in Birmingham Aston University? Because they've asked me to give a talk and I don't know what to talk about. He goes, oh, it's all right. It's just like a normal talk. Right? It's just like a normal talk you give in a mosque. Exactly the same. And I properly prepared everything, like I had everything. When I went there and I delivered the talk, it was exactly the same as giving a talk in a mosque. In other words, the audience were they showed the same response. Yeah, as like this,
mashallah, all of that.
This programmed response that people have, this pre-programmed
Mm-hmm.
response that you sit in front of a scholar, you listen to everything he says, and at the end of it, you say, mashallah. You go up to him and say, your talk was so amazing, mashallah. One of those ones.
You should always ask for some, whenever you deliver a public address, when somebody comes up to you and goes, "Oh, that was amazing." The next question I always ask is, "What was your favorite part?"
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's like so amazing, but you don't remember anything.
Yeah. And that's the sad thing, I think. I like it when people do ask interesting questions. Like if people do ask, even if it's controversial questions, I don't mind, because I know there's going to be, if one guy has that question, I guarantee you there's going to be 20-30% of the audience who would have had that question in their head, but they were just trying to suppress that question and say, you know what, we shouldn't be asking these kind of things. And I'd rather people ask the question in a polite way, with etiquette, rather than suppressing it, because who else they going to ask?
Without oversimplifying it, Mufti Saab, I think I'm a nobody basically, but I've kind of divided it into two kind of segments. when I come across people that, you know, either an alim or a mufti or whatnot,
Hmm.
some people, they'll treat the Islam as a blueprint.
Hmm.
And with the blueprint, you have all of the principles and you can apply them. But then other people, they take the Islam as a stencil, but the stencil sometimes doesn't fit because you're so used to using it and the same drawing all the time. So what they might have learned in a system that might have been created in a different part of the world doesn't necessarily apply here. So they won't equip themselves up on learning things about policy and some of the issues that we face in today's day and age. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too.
No, you know exactly. You know when that maktab thing happened a few years ago? Remember the whole revamping of the maktabs?
Yeah.
You know, Ofsted were going to step in. I think that was the most wonderful thing that ever happened, because maktabs got shaken so they didn't even realize they had to have, you know, all of these policies in place. Yeah, you know, some of them were even DBS checked. You know, you're sending your kid to a guy who you don't know who he is just because he's got the name Maulana next to his name, or Qari or Hafiz, or, you know, Appa, Alima. You're sending your child to them. You don't know what's going to happen with them, whether they're going to teach them properly. Like, have you checked them out? Have you kind of screened them? Have there been any official screening of these people? And then you hear so many stories of unfortunate things happening to kids in these places. And then some of these places are so dangerous, like a small staircase where like 30, 40 kids are going up and down. And if there was a fire anywhere, there'd be no escape for them.
Yeah.
And it was like, alhamdulillah, this happened because my dad actually fitted in a lot of these alarm systems and fire. He did it for the mosques for free. So he said to me that, you know, a lot of these places, they weren't even fire checked. Like, they were so dangerous. And so I think a lot of these kind of things make sense. It kind of wakes up the community and makes them realize that, you know what, you got to get all these things checked. How we teach as well, the pedagogy of teaching children, right? You know, like,
we're not science based when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's not like we look at that. It's like, oh yeah, I learned like this, and my ustad taught me like this, so I must teach like this. So there's no there's no movement on that whatsoever. I think we did a study with somebody from Channel 4 about 15 years ago, no, 10, 12 years ago in Aston. We brought a behavioural specialist in.
Okay.
His name was Rob Wins, I think, something like that. He was from Channel 4. He did a series on Channel 4. And he came over to the madrasas, and we said to him, look, help us to improve the behaviour of the kids. Like, how do we improve the behaviour of the kids? And so he just asked us a quick question. He goes, your kids come to the mosque, they sit in the classroom, and they have less than 10 minutes of contact time with the teacher. He goes, what do you expect to teach them?
Ajib.
And when he said that, like in that kind of way, he was like, actually, that's quite true. Like, you're just sitting there, and then when I asked them, some of the Maulana, they said, no, you don't understand it. They're in the mohal of the madrasa. I was like, well, Maulana, they're only getting 10 minutes contact time with you, if that.
Sometimes
the rest is
split between three of the guys. Like, I don't know how, but I'm not going to name drop what mosque I went to, but the Ustad would listen to 4 people read Quran at the same time.
On 5 different subuks.
No, because he has super hearing by Professor Xavier.
Allah.
This guy, he then delivered a course for all the madrasas in terms of behavioural specialisms.
Okay.
And he sat down in a class. I think he went to a madrasa as well. We got him to go to a madrasa as well.
Where was this?
Was, like, really confused.
Where was this?
Pardon?
Where was this?
This was in Aston.
Oh.
Maybe 2006.
Yeah.
So we brought him down because we were looking at madrasa syllabuses and all that kind of stuff. But we're looking more about behaviour. And we thought, how do we help them with behaviour? We got some funding in place from a non-governmental source or anything like that. And we thought, okay, let's just try this. Let's try creating a forum. And as part of that forum, we brought him in. And it was quite interesting what he was saying. But the thing that always stuck in my mind is the contact time a child has with the teacher. And he said he has 10 minutes contact time.
And we don't think about that.
My child's at home, and we're teaching them at home in terms of like just the basic sabak. You can get the sabak done in like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
In 10 minutes to get the sabak done, and then basically in the evening they just go on a Skype class with the rest of the madrasa.
I mean, I think what you're saying now is a very good topic for us, you know, in a future podcast. You know, this whole idea of Islamic education in the West. Yeah, the kind of, you know, the drawbacks. I mean, I went to this Ilm to Amal presentation they had, and the guy goes that there's a couple who are ex-Muslims are doing a PhD, and the PhD probably come out by now, but they done a PhD and they done a survey of Muslims. They worked out there's about 3 million Muslims in the UK, and they said they worked out there was about 600. There's about 600,000 children, right? And they said that 300,000 of them go to maktabs. 300,000 we don't know what they do. And he said that when they surveyed ex-Muslims and they asked them why did they leave Islam, and they said 62% of them said it was because of the treatment they felt in maktabs.
Yeah, but like,
that's not necessarily the reason. But what I'm saying is, like us being brought up in the 90s and experiencing what maktab was like in the maktab that I went to, a stick was broken nearly every week, either by the teacher or we broke it. Yeah, we started break the stick, chuck it away, and it was like, it wasn't even any system of tajweed or anything. There wasn't any teaching about the importance of Islam. It was just like a matter of, well, you should know this. You should know that you're supposed to be a Muslim, right? And this is how you're supposed to pray. And it was all like kind of regimental kind of way of teaching Islam, and it had
it's still the same. It's still the same, but now it's just regimented in terms of like finishing all these books and qaidas. And you're like, I look at my kids and I like, do I really want them to go through all of these books now? No, not really. I just want them to learn about Islam and enjoy it, and enjoy their connection with their religion. If that happens through like a structured syllabus that they're going to go over the top on, and they're going to go through every little element, and they're going to have 52 books that they're going to have to go through in madrasa and in school.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I'm like, I want them to learn Quran. I want them to learn the basics, and I just want them to be connected with their deen. I think most of the things that I learned in madrasa, I don't remember now. I had to relearn them when I got older.
Most of the things you learned in GCSE, you don't remember them now.
I've still never used trigonometry.
I still don't know what tan means. I still don't know what tan means in the calculator. Tan.
But to be fair, even with religious studies, Mufti Saab in general, I think there's a new generation of people that are coming. They're going to shake things up. Like, I'm sure you're quite familiar with like Brother Zakaria, for instance.
Yeah.
His ideas about how Arabic should
Maybe we should bring him on. Maybe we should bring him on one of these.
Yeah.
A good idea.
It'd be good, if you do want an education, I think he's definitely somebody you should bring on board, because obviously he's studying that and he's got a good background in all of this kind of stuff, inshallah.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Musab, I think we come to a normal impasse to end up now.
So let's just wrap up then. Let's wrap up. So what was the main sort of like points we can go away with?
I think the main points we can go away is that making sure that we have a better holistic understanding of our religion, and when we understand like singular points, is to make sure that we've got some kind of structured way of understanding things. So when you hear something in a bayan, don't just go away with it. It's about learning around it as well.
Yeah.
And make sure that you're staying connected to some form of teaching. Musab, I think one of the things that we could do in a future podcast is
ask them as well. Sorry, 1 second. So anyone's got any sort of like ideas or suggestions of topics that we can do in future podcasts? And what did you guys think of this podcast today? What kind of like what kind of suggestions do you have for us? Maybe positive and negative as well. We don't mind. Yeah, we're grown up, inshallah. We can take it all, inshallah. So
I'm not gonna accept any comments about my top or my shirt, anything like that.
Yeah.
Those will be deleted.
Those will be like muted. You can mute them out. So if you guys can put in the comments, inshallah, for Thursday, we do have some suggestions, but let us know. So Adaf, carry on.
Sorry, I think one of the things we could do is like how we can stay connected how we can stay connected after Ramadan or in Ramadan to our religion as well, and learn more in a more informal, like constructed and an informal way, without like going on to a formal class where it's regimented at a certain time and a certain date and a certain, like, you've got to be there at this place, this time, this date, because everybody's more fluid in their timetables now. And I think it becomes more difficult. So it's like, can we structure e-learning, or is there any way that you would advise us to go? Because I think the other thing this provides you is that canvas to understand the way that people are changing their habits in learning. So that becomes quite important.
Do mosques and madrasas have book clubs?
Clubs, astaghfirullah. Clubs, Allahu Akbar.
You know what I mean?
The only clubs that I've passed is Broad Street clubs.
That's like golf clubs. But you know what I mean? Like, where a group of people, they pick a title, everyone takes the book away, you read a certain
I think that's
your thoughts.
I think that's a good idea. See, the other problem is, we were saying early on about this cultural mentality that we have. We've kind of created, and we don't want to step out of it, which is the bayan mentality. We just want to hear bayan sound bites. We just want to get our sheikh to just say something, 2-line thing, and then we kind of interpret what he said in our own way, the way that we like. Yeah, Sheikh so and so said this, and I like this statement. Why? Because I understand it to mean this. Which could be totally opposite of what he was saying. But then it just creates this kind of like this sluggish mentality that people have. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to read. They don't want to question as well. I think, although it's a controversial topic, which is the idea of questioning status quos, Islamic status quos that we have, it's questioning certain things that some scholars might say, right? Which obviously you don't want to open the doors to, to proper scholarship being criticized by ignorant people. But these are.
I've got to interrupt you. We're on a Khana Peena show, and Haludi Foodie, mashallah, the Ramadan Muslim sensation, has decided to join this podcast.
Allah Akbar.
He'll be doing cooking along live with him and all of these things. So I'm going to ask him, make sure you make something which is from the Sunnah.
Yes, my brother, and send it to us so that we can verify it is from the Sunnah.
Yeah. Salam to everybody as well.
Wa alaikum assalam, mashallah, brother. You know that one. Remember that you said about that one guy who does that. Does he still do it? You were saying that he does this kind of food club.
Yeah, it's him.
Oh,
yeah,
him.
Yeah. Club.
Yeah. I think that would be a wonderful thing. People like they've been in isolation, so they have to learn how to cook, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think
he's teaching people online at the moment.
Excellent. Maybe one day we can bring him on.
He's got a proper old school Tablighi brother, mashallah.
Maybe you can bring him on one day. Would he be interested in coming on? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I can ask him to come on, inshallah. I'm sure he'll be interested.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't teach us how to make dal chawal, bro.
This guy is famous now.
Oh, but dal chawal is nice with meat in there.
All sorts.
1 minute you're talking about the ethics of meat, and now you're.
I'm just excited at him. So I saw him join on Facebook, so I thought I might as well say it, innit?
Allahu Akbar. Yeah, alhamdulillah. I mean, I think we did. I personally don't feel that we were able to talk more about this whole concept of prophetic medicine and food. Maybe another date, maybe we can have more of a discussion on this idea, because I think today it was just maybe a little bit of a shock for some people as well, hearing some kind of like certain things that occurred in the past with regards to this.
Some of your subscribers.
I'm gonna have to check. I remember once, when I was saying I did the evolution of fiqh course, and I mentioned to someone that there's no reward in how you sleep, and there's no reward in how you walk, and there's no reward. And a guy came up to me and goes, "But what about when the people say the Prophet ﷺ walked like this and he slept like this, right? Like, how can you say there's no reward?" And I said, "Look, there's no reward as in we don't find Sahaba imitating the Prophet ﷺ at a mass level in these actions. Like, if they did used to emphasize it, we would have found so many narrations, like we find narrations of Salat." So the guy was like shocked, and afterwards, and then one guy told me, "You shouldn't have told this to him, because he basically kind of like follows this particular individual in Leicester, a particular sheikh, who are quite strict, and this is the kind of like anti sort of like thing." There's like, you told him something that was kryptonite. Anyway, yeah, so Jazakallah khair, guys. I think we'll wrap it up there. And it's a bit late as well. And we did start a bit late as well. So I do apologize. It was my fault with the.
Me and Naveed are quite excited, Mustafa, because it's close to our suhoor time.
Allah Akbar. It's close to my sleep time as well.
SubhanAllah. Jazakallah khair, inshallah. We see everybody on Thursday, innit?
Yeah, Thursday, inshallah. So let's just see if there's any sort of last sort of like main comment on here. So a lot of people enjoyed it. Naveed Bhai, your top was the best part of it, mashallah. A date with Mufti. I just want to chill with Mufti Saab, mashallah. Yeah, bro, Hassan, anything for you, bro. You can have not one date, you can have 20 dates.
No, you can have 3 dates.
You can have Majula dates. 20 Majula dates. Yeah, I think you should tackle the topic of culture. Doesn't address. Yeah, so definitely. Remember to do at the Hajjuds. Allah, mashallah. We're going to do loads, inshallah.
Where's the other guy? Has he?
Yasin, South African, mashallah. He's here as well. Alhamdulillah. Aston University gang. I'm not going to do South African accent because it's too late. Yeah, and a lot of you guys said it was Scottish, so I'm upset. Alright, guys. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, guys. Take care, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.